You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
Black and White Sports supporters, in a surprise to no one, you had to know that the mainstream media and the mainstream sports media were going to have a meltdown on the NAIA actually banning transgenders from women's sports. So men who identify as women, they cannot actually compete against women. They can't do it. Now, they can compete against men, or how about this? Why don't they just start their own transgender league, to make it fair? But no, they want to compete against women. And the mainstream media, man, they seem to be all on board with this, man, because CNN's Jake Tapper actually platform ESPN non-binary journalist, I guess you could say. I never heard of this person. This person goes by the name of Katie Barnes, and I believe this is a male that actually uses like they, them pronouns. Yeah, this is the person that they actually brought on to attack the NAIA for bringing common sense back and protecting women. Yeah, this person here definitely was off the rocker, man. And CNN platformed this person. It doesn't make any sense to me, man. It really doesn't make any sense. If you were born a woman, compete against women. If you were a man, compete against a man. It's just that simple, man. We never had this confusion when I was growing up. But for some reason, man, we lost our way. Wokeness has just infiltrated everything, and now the mainstream sports media wants to act like this is okay. When we have well documented here on this channel of women actually getting hurt. Fallon Fox actually cracked the skull of a woman. So let's get into it, guys. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, become a channel member live stream every single Friday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. We appreciate the support. So here we go. Check this out. Jake Tapper here brings on Katie Barnes. I believe this is actually a man. But this person believes there's no advantage of men identifying as women over women. Let's roll it. Here we go.
Joining us now to discuss is journalist and author of Fair Play, How Sports Shape the Gender Debate, Katie Barnes. Katie, thank you for joining us. What do you make of the NAIA's new transgender participation policy?
Well, I think it is reflective of the times that we are in terms of, for the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen most policy updates when it comes to transgender athletes be reflective of restriction and in favor of more restrictive policy. And this seems to fall right in line with that.
There is a narrative that transgender female athletes have an advantage, that they always win.
That's not a narrative, it's a fact.
That the reason that men and women generally compete in separate gender categories is because it's not particularly competitive for men to compete against women. Do studies support that?
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by support that. For my reporting and having really reported this out for many years, the reality is that from a scientific perspective, we know that there are differences in sexes, and we know that the differences do tend to lead to athletic performance differences as well. However, when we look at broad-based restriction at all levels of sport, it's very challenging to say that scientifically that is supported in all cases, meaning that something that might be appropriate for swimming does not necessarily apply to basketball when it comes to individual sports versus team sports, as well as level of competition. And so the idea, I think, that transgender women have an advantage in all sports at all times, regardless of any kind of medical transition, I don't think that the scientific literature supports that at this time.
Wow. Astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Watch this here. No pushback from Jake Tapper.
Would there be a way to come up with a rule that was more individual specific or sport specific that might not be? I mean, it sounds as though you're suggesting, and if I'm putting words in your wrong, I apologize. In your mouth, I apologize. It sounds like you're suggesting this policy is not necessarily fair, given how blanket it is. Is there a way to do something like this that would be more fair and more reflective of what is factually known about gender differences in different sports, et cetera?
I don't know if it's right for me to say whether or not this particular policy is fair. I think that right now, where we are as a society is really grappling with what does fair and appropriate policy look like. And in general, most athletic organizations and many states across the country are embracing a blanket restriction. And I think there are a lot of people raising questions about whether or not that is fair and appropriate policy in all cases. And I do think that the jury is out on that, especially because when you look at the NAIA, there isn't necessarily a track record of transgender women competing in women's sports and dominating, right? It doesn't really seem like there is a particular problem, quote unquote, to be solved in this case. And so in general, I think the real question is going to be what policy can withstand being tested and be accepted when a transgender woman does compete and win. And it seems like right now the answer to that question is looking to remove any possibility of a transgender woman being able to participate and compete in women's sports at a variety of levels, and in this case, including collegiately.
Do we have any idea what the numbers are of transgender athletes that are participating in college or university athletics, or even junior high or high school athletics? I mean, the amount of coverage and attention it gets is significant, and I don't know how many people we're even talking about necessarily.
We're talking about a very small number of people. I think that's really important to acknowledge, especially now that 24 states have passed restrictive policies, passed restrictive legislation, that affects K through 12 and often college sports. And so in about half the country, transgender girls and women don't have access to girls and women's sports at this time anyway. And in those states where you still have transgender girls and women eligible to participate in girls and women's sports, the numbers that are doing so are not necessarily known. It's not a data set that is readily available, but from the reporting that I've done over the years, the accepted number, so to speak, is very small and very few. Oftentimes in states where this has been debated and a number of athletes have come forward who are younger, who are talking about their experiences, we're talking about single digits in each state. And in the collegiate ranks, even though like the NCAA, for example, supports sports that have about 500,000 athletes across 24 sports at all three divisions, you're still looking at a very small number.
But the thing is, we have noticed over the years there has been a rise. There has been a rise. And these boys and men are dominating the women and injuring women. That's just a fact.
Probably, we don't know it specifically, but I've been told from sources that it's well under 100. And so that are actively using the NCAA's policy. And in the NAIA, we don't really know how many known athletes there are, but it also is very small. And so we're not talking about thousands of athletes or tens of thousands of athletes. We're oftentimes talking about hundreds, maybe tens.
Katie Barnes, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Astonishing, guys. Absolutely astonishing right there. No pushback whatsoever from Jay Tapper. Amazing. CNN brings on this person to push the agenda. And I'm willing to bet, guys, that the majority of America is not down with what the woke agenda is when it comes to transgenders in sports. Amazing. But that's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? Black and white sports fans, let us know what you think about all this in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.